Imagine yourself as a kindergarten teacher, and you've gathered a group of wide-eyed 5- and 6-year-olds, maybe 4- and 5-year-olds, into the square of carpeting that you use to do story time. And you smile into their innocent faces and you start this story. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Goldilocks, and she was fast asleep in this lovely little bed, the bed that she thought was just right for her. But that morning, she opened her eyes, and she was scared half to death to see 3 bears staring at her. So even though she was still in her pajamas, Goldilocks jumped out of bed, ran out of the house, then went to start having her own adventures as she tried to find her way back through the dark forest. Now, if you did that, I'm guessing you might have noticed yourself, there's something wrong with this story. All those little kindergartners would have no doubt looked at you and said, "Wait, that's not how the story goes. It doesn't make any sense to tell it that way. You have to start at the beginning. Go back. The porridge has to be too hot and then too cold and then just right. You left that part out. Start over." Well, Scott Hosey, who's one of the preachers at the Center of Excellence in Preaching in Grand Rapids, Michigan, he offered that story as a way for us to look at our gospel lesson today. Because as we prepare for Christmas, we look forward to the retelling of the story of the birth of Jesus, Mary, Joseph, the donkey. But our gospel story starts not there. It starts with John the Baptist and with Jesus as an adult. And we might want to say back up. We left something out. We want the whole story. We need the whole story. In this crazy world we live in, we need that story. So Mark's gospel not only puts us closer to the end of Jesus' story, he jumps right into the Jordan, he also takes us back centuries, dusting off words from the prophet Isaiah, who spoke to a different time and situation. Or did he? Maybe Isaiah didn't speak to a different world situation. Because throughout history, as long as there have been people, there has been strife, there's been struggles for power, there have been questions about whether faith is enough to sustain us. And so Isaiah's words in this context, maybe they're not so dusty after all. We hear these words of Isaiah saying, "Comfort, comfort my people," a people who are lost, who feel bewildered, who feel abandoned. But it's a different kind of comfort that you and I might be used to. It's not curling up on the couch on a cold day like today with a fuzzy blanket. No, this word comfort, my people, is a combination of the Latin word cum, which means with, and fortis, which means strength. Strength be with you, Isaiah says. And as one professor put it, it's sort of, comfort is a word with muscle. It comes with a bracing, in-your-face message about what is what in life. So this morning, we have Isaiah telling us that in order for us to know comfort, that peace that we talked about as we lit the Advent wreath, we need to be able to confront all that is wrong with life these days. And along with that, we feel Mark's sense of urgency. For with Mark, who lived in the immediate aftermath of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection, what was considered the end of the story, it's important that we get to the point of what Mark was trying to tell us. He's showing us Jesus beyond the vulnerable cradle that we put up on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve here. He's showing us Jesus as he begins his ministry. Jesus, Mark believes, is the beginning of the gospel. Jesus is the beginning of the good news. And what Mark is expecting is that the rest of the story is up to us. Jesus is the one who does give the comfort, that strength with us, so that we can take up the work that he began with. We have to take up the work. How do we do this? How are we supposed to be messengers of hope like Mark and Isaiah? How can we find it in ourselves when it seems everything around us is chaos and our world knows so little peace? Well, it may be helpful to think of this. Advent began as a penitential season like Lent, a time to reflect on one's life and one's relationship with God, to be in touch with your higher power, and to see how that relationship squares up with what is wrong in the world around us. If we go about our own personal inner work, we might be freed up to think about how our lives align with the message that Christmas brings. How do our lives align with being messengers of peace and hope and love and joy? Well, we can only do this if we recognize that we really aren't all that different from the people in Isaiah's time or Mark's time. Their messages, Mark's and Isaiah's, they come straight out of the harshest realities of life: exile, persecution. So, God with us and strength with us, Emmanuel and comfort, they don't just spring up out of a tastefully decorated Christmas tree or a nice hot cup of cocoa while you're singing carols. And I'm not saying that we need to ignore those things. We need those things as beautiful and peaceful reminders of the season we are in. But we shouldn't hide ourselves in them either. We hold on to those images and messages of hope alongside what we know of the world around us. They give us strength so that we can face things like racial divides and religious conflict and violence in all the ways it takes shape. So if we can cling to comfort in both its forms, we will have the strength to stand up, to speak up. She's doing a good job of that. And never give up until tiny sparks of shalom break into the world. You and I are called to be messengers of hope. We are to begin this Advent continuing the gospel that began in Jesus. We're like the symbols of the evergreens, ones who remind people that there is a possibility of newness in life every day. And we are more than symbols. We are messengers, messengers of hope, to people who feel that they are the only ones trying to fight their way out of the darkness. So as we go forth this day, I invite you to know courage and encouragement that you have the strength to change the world, one little light of hope at a time.